You know him as Neo, the one, John Wick, the man who walks away from explosions without looking back. But behind the scenes, away from cameras, there's another side of Keanu Reeves, a side fueled by gasoline, engineering, and raw mechanical emotion. Unlike most celebrities, Keanu doesn't collect cars to show off. He doesn't post them on Instagram. He doesn't park them in front of clubs. In fact, most people have no idea what's actually sitting in his garage, and once you see it, you'll understand this isn't a collection, it's a philosophy. What if the story of one of Hollywood's most mysterious garages didn't begin with a supercar, but with something almost no one would expect? Before the fame, before the millions, before the world knew Keanu Reeves as Neo or John Wick, there was just a young man in a very ordinary car. No roaring V12 engine, no exotic badge, no attention. Just a worn-out, boxy machine that most people would overlook without a second glance. A 1969 Volvo 122. That's where it started. Back then, Keanu wasn't chasing speed records or luxury status. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was trying to understand something deeper. What it actually feels like to be behind the wheel. The Volvo wasn't perfect. In fact, by most standards, it was far from it. It was slow, simple, and compared to modern cars, almost primitive. But that's exactly what made it special. Because when a car doesn't hide behind technology, you feel everything. The vibration of the engine, the resistance in the steering, the raw connection between your hands, your feet, and the road. For Keanu, this wasn't just transportation. It was the beginning of an obsession. Most people fall in love with cars because of what they represent: money, status, power. But Keanu Reeves fell in love with the experience itself. Driving wasn't about getting somewhere faster. It was about being present, about control, about awareness, about that strange, almost meditative state that happens when machine and human start to move as one. That's something you can't teach, and it's definitely something you can't fake. There's a moment every real car enthusiast experiences. A moment when driving stops being just a task and becomes something personal. For Keanu, that moment came early, and once it happened, there was no going back. Because when you start to see cars differently, you never see them the same again. What makes this story even more interesting is what didn't happen. He didn't immediately upgrade to something flashy. He didn't chase luxury brands. He didn't suddenly become obsessed with owning the most expensive machine he could find. Instead, he took his time, he observed, he learned. He paid attention to the subtle differences between engines, between handling, between feel. He wasn't building a collection. He was building understanding. And that's the key difference. From the very beginning, Keanu Reeves approached cars not like a celebrity, but like a student of motion, of engineering, of sensation. Years later, when the money finally came and he could buy anything he wanted, that mindset never changed. And that's why his garage would eventually become something completely unexpected. Not a showroom of status, not a lineup of identical luxury machines, but something far more rare. A reflection of taste, curiosity, and passion that wasn't shaped by trends but by experience. And it all started with a simple Volvo. Not fast, not expensive, not impressive, but powerful in a way most people will never understand. Because sometimes the most important cars in your life aren't the ones that turn heads, they're the ones that change how you see the road forever. After that first connection with a simple Volvo, something inside Keanu Reeves changed, and it didn't fade away with time, it evolved. As his career slowly started taking off and money finally entered the picture, he found himself in a position most car enthusiasts only dream about: the ability to choose almost any car in the world. But instead of going straight for the loudest, flashiest option, Keanu made a decision that revealed everything about his mindset. He chose precision over attention, feeling over status. And that path led him directly to one of the most iconic driver-focused machines ever built, the Porsche 911. Not just any 911, but the Porsche 911 Carrera 4S from the 993 generation, a car that enthusiasts often describe as the last true analog Porsche. Air-cooled engine, perfectly balanced chassis, and a driving experience that demands involvement from the person behind the wheel. This wasn't a car you simply sat in and cruised. This was a car that required you to pay attention, to respect it, to become part of it. And for Keanu, that was exactly the point. Owning this Porsche wasn't about adding another expensive item to a growing list of assets. It was about connection, about that same raw mechanical honesty he first experienced with his Volvo. When someone who values connection over status suddenly gains access to the fastest, most expensive machines on the planet, you would expect everything to change. You would expect excess noise in a garage filled with cars chosen purely for their price tags. But when it comes to Keanu Reeves, that expectation doesn't quite match reality. Yes, at one point he stepped into the world of extreme performance, the kind of world where numbers stop making sense to normal people. Cars capable of reaching over 400 kilometers per hour. Machines engineered not just to drive, but to dominate physics itself. Names like the Bugatti Veyron started appearing around him, a hypercar that represents the absolute peak of automotive engineering, with a price tag easily climbing past $2 million. It's the kind of car that most celebrities would proudly display, something designed to attract attention from every angle. But here's the difference. Keanu was never seen building his identity around cars like that. For him, these machines weren't trophies. They weren't symbols of success. They were experiences, moments of curiosity, opportunities to understand what extreme performance actually feels like. He could appreciate them, respect them, even enjoy them, but they never defined him. The same pattern appeared with Ferrari. Models like the Ferrari 488 GTB or even the ultra-exclusive Le Ferrari, cars that sit in the range of hundreds of thousands to several $1 million, represent a completely different level of performance and prestige. Sharp design, aggressive sound, instant recognition. These are cars that demand to be seen. But once again, Keanu didn't orbit around them the way most people would. He didn't chase visibility. He didn't try to build a public image around owning them. Because the truth is, while he had access to these machines, they were never the center of his automotive world. They were like visiting another dimension, impressive, powerful, but not something he needed to live in permanently. What makes this even more interesting is what happened in parallel. While hypercars and supercars existed somewhere in his orbit, his everyday choices told a completely different story. Instead of constantly driving the fastest or most expensive options available, he often chose something far more understated. Cars like a Mercedes-Benz GLE, an Audi Q7, or an Audi A8. Comfortable, quiet, practical, the kind of vehicles that don't scream for attention, that don't announce wealth to the world. And that contrast is where things become clear, because anyone can buy an expensive car when they have money, but choosing not to use it as a statement, that's something else entirely. That's control, that's awareness. That's someone who understands that identity doesn't come from what you show, but from what you value. While others were chasing louder engines and brighter headlights, Keanu was moving in silence, blending in, observing, staying grounded in a world that constantly tries to pull people in the opposite direction. And yet, that doesn't mean he abandoned intensity, because hidden beneath that calm, understated surface, there was still a part of him that appreciated something raw, something aggressive, something that connects directly to the roots of driving. Not the polished perfection of modern hypercars, but something more physical, more demanding. That's where another side of his taste begins to reveal itself, a side that doesn't care about luxury or comfort, but about power, sound, and presence. A side that would eventually lead him back to machines that don't assist you, don't protect you, and definitely don't forgive mistakes. Because for someone like Keanu Reeves, the real thrill isn't in controlling the most advanced car in the world. It's in mastering something that can't be tamed easily. That raw, untamed side of driving eventually leads straight into a completely different world. One that has nothing to do with comfort, luxury, or quiet sophistication. And for Keanu Reeves, this is where things become even more personal. Because beyond the refined precision of European engineering and the overwhelming power of hypercars, there exists something far more visceral, something louder, heavier, and far less forgiving: American muscle. At some point, Keanu's taste naturally expanded into this territory where cars aren't built to be perfect, they're built to be felt. Machines like the 1969 Ford Mustang Boss 429 represent a completely different philosophy. Big engine, aggressive stance, and a sound that doesn't ask for attention, it takes it. This isn't a car you casually drive through the city without being noticed. It's raw energy on four wheels. And unlike modern performance cars filled with driver assists and advanced electronics, something like a Boss 429 demands respect. There's no safety net, no system correcting your mistakes. Every input matters. Every decision behind the wheel has consequence.